My sister stood up at our family barbecue and told 50 people I was bankrupt. She raised her glass, smiled with fake concern, and said, "Danielle's too proud to ask for help, so I'll speak for her." People gasped. Cousins leaned closer. My mom dropped her plastic fork. I just sat there, eyes steady, hands calm, while she gave the most polished pity speech I've ever heard. What she didn't know was that 2 hours earlier, I'd signed the final papers on the beach house she's been obsessed with for the last 3 years. Sometimes silence is the loudest kind of revenge. I'm Danielle Myers, 34, and in my family, I've always been the invisible sister. The practical one. The quiet achiever, which really just meant my victories didn't come with confetti or hashtags. My older sister, Haley. She came out of the womb ready for the spotlight. Beauty pageants at 5. Instagram followers at 15. Luxury taste before she even had a driver's license. But what she didn't know about was compound interest. Or emergency funds. Or LLCs created quietly under someone else's name. She never noticed me watching. Calculating. Preparing. And I never forgot how she humiliated me at Christmas when I was 12. Claiming I wet the bed, in front of the entire family. I hadn't. But she laughed loudest, and that's what people remembered. If you've ever been humiliated by someone who was supposed to love you, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. You're not alone. It's funny how some things change, and some don't. This is the story of how she tried to destroy my reputation. And how I bought her dream house in silence. Not to rub it in. Not even to hurt her. But to finally step out of the shadow she built. And into a light I created for myself. Growing up with Haley was like standing in front of a spotlight you could never escape. She didn't just walk into a room, she entered. With perfume, laughter, and a voice just loud enough for everyone to hear. People noticed her. They adored her. And if they didn't, she'd find a way to make them. Meanwhile, Danielle was the quiet one. I didn't mind. At least, not at first. Our parents never meant to play favorites. But when one daughter throws tantrums and the other quietly does her homework, guess who gets more attention? At birthday parties, Haley was the star. Even when it wasn't her birthday. At Christmas, she'd help unwrap my gifts and borrow them before the day ended. At school, she told people I was adopted, as a joke. And when I won the state science fair in 9th grade, she told our cousins it was because I had no social life. I laughed it off. Again. And again. And again. What else do you do when the person hurting you is your sister? And everyone tells you to just ignore her? It was easier to shrink than to fight. But something inside me, quietly, stubbornly, started taking notes. I watched her burn through money like it came from a magic faucet. Credit cards maxed out. New cars she couldn't afford. Instagram perfect vacations she begged her exes to fund. And I started doing the opposite. I worked. I saved. I said no to things that sparkled and yes to things that grew. By the time I was 29, I'd started a small business selling sustainable kitchen products. Nothing flashy. Just bamboo sets, compost bins, glass containers. The kind of things Haley once called eco-junk. What she didn't know was that I had a system. I reinvested every dollar. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment even when I could have afforded more. I drove my old sedan until the engine literally gave out on I-26. I built an emergency fund. Then a second one. Then a retirement account. At one point, I had nearly $200,000 sitting in cash, untouched. Still, I declined a friend's invitation to Bali. Still drove my 12-year-old sedan. Still brought lunch from home while others spent $17 on kale wraps. People called me stingy. Some said I was scared of living. But I wasn't saving to impress anyone. I was saving to be unshakable. While Haley bounced between 3 jobs in 2 years. A marketing assistant, a wellness coach, a sales rep for overpriced hair supplements. I was hiring my 6th employee. At family dinners. She still found ways to shine. She'd walk in late, hug everyone loudly, and talk about herself for hours. Then, with perfect timing, she'd tilt her head toward me and say, "Danielle's doing something with jars these days, right? Sustainable, something?" Anyway. I'd smile. And stay silent. Not because I was weak. But because I had finally started understanding something. People like Haley feed on reaction. Silence confuses them. Dignity threatens them. Still, that didn't mean I wasn't hurt. Especially when our parents laughed along. Especially when relatives congratulated her on things I had done. Because she had told them she was involved. She once said, "I'm like her brand manager." As if reposting one product photo qualified as a career. But I let it go. Until one day, during a family trip to Folly Beach. We passed a beautiful beachfront property, white pillars. Wraparound porch, sea breeze curling through wind chimes. Haley gasped and said, "That's it. That's my house. One day, I'll live there." She said it like it was a birthright. She took dozens of pictures, posted them with captions like, "Manifesting my dream." And made everyone promise to attend her future 40th birthday right there. Everyone laughed. Even I did. But something about the way she touched the doorknob during the open house. As if it already belonged to her. Stayed with me. Not because I wanted to take it from her. But because I knew she never imagined I could afford it first. She assumed I was small. She needed me to be small. Because if I ever stopped being the quiet one, what would that make her? 6 months ago, I hit a wall. One of my biggest suppliers, a factory I'd worked with for years, shut down without warning. Just like that, half my spring inventory was gone. Orders delayed. Refunds piling up. Customer complaints flooding in like a broken faucet. At the same time, a platform algorithm changed. Overnight, my top-selling product listings dropped off the map. It felt like watching your house slowly catch fire, one room at a time. I wasn't ruined. But I was cornered. For the first time in years, I took out a business loan. Not huge, just enough to keep payroll going and cover production from a backup manufacturer in Oregon. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my parents. But somehow, Haley found out. She'd stopped by my house, just to check in. And while I was upstairs grabbing the tea she requested, she wandered into my home office. Later, I found one of my folders out of place. Nothing dramatic. Just slightly crooked. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But I keep everything lined up, labels sharp, angles perfect. Haley isn't most people. She grew up snooping and smiling while doing it. That night, she asked me, casually, "How's business? Things still going, smooth?" There was a flicker in her voice. The kind she couldn't quite hide when she smelled blood. I smiled. Ups and downs, like any business. She didn't press. But when I later noticed one of my labeled folders ever so slightly misaligned, I knew. She'd seen the contingency file. Maybe even snapped a photo. Classic Haley. And I didn't ask why she was suddenly offering to help me network. 2 weeks later, at a brunch with cousins in Atlanta, I got a text from Emma, my accountant cousin and longtime friend. "Haley's telling people you're shutting down." Something about bankruptcy forms she accidentally saw. Want me to say something? My chest tightened. I told Emma to ignore it. Maybe Haley needed attention. Maybe this was just another of her little games. But deep down, I knew, this time was different. This wasn't just her spinning stories. This was strategic. calculated. And then, as if the universe wanted to test me further, the beach house, her beach house, came back on the market. A post-divorce sale. Urgent. Reduced by nearly $300. 000 from the original price. I stared at the listing for hours. Same wraparound porch. Same white pillars. Same swing on the front deck that Haley had called pure Southern royalty. I closed the browser tab. Then opened it again. Over and over. Was I seriously considering this? Was I really thinking of buying the house she had claimed as her destiny? I ran the numbers. Spoke to my advisor. Checked and rechecked my reserves. To make it work, I'd have to liquidate part of my investment account, the one I'd been growing since I was 24. It was a bold move. Some might even say reckless. But it wasn't revenge I was after. It was peace. A quiet, personal declaration that I was done being the shadow in her spotlight. So I created an LLC. Made a cash offer. And set the closing date for the Saturday of our family's annual 4th of July barbecue, the one Haley always turned into her own red, white and gold parade. I didn't tell anyone. Not Emma. Not my parents. Not even my assistant. As the days crept closer, I imagined Haley's voice echoing across that backyard. We all need to support Danielle right now. I imagined the whispers. The sympathetic stares. The fake job offers. And I pictured myself, smiling. Not because of what she'd say. But because I'd already won. Not the war. Not the argument. Just, the right to live outside of her shadow. For once. The morning of the barbecue, the sky was spotless, not a single cloud. It would have been perfect, if not for the pit in my stomach. I pulled into my parents' driveway with a tray of deviled eggs I didn't make and a smile I didn't feel. From across the lawn, I spotted the usual chaos: kids chasing each other barefoot, uncles arguing over grill temperature, my mom fussing with bunting on the fence. And then, her. Haley. Wearing a white sundress far too formal for a backyard event and sunglasses large enough to cover both judgment and joy. She waved at me like we were best friends reunited at an airport. I gave her a nod, nothing more. As I set the food down inside, Emma, my cousin/accountant/emotional first responder, leaned in. She's been weird all morning, Emma whispered. Gathering people in corners. Doing that fake concerned head tilt. Whatever it is, it's coming. I nodded. Let her do what she does. And I meant it. Because I had a contract in my purse. A confirmation email from the title company. And the keys to her dream house in my back pocket. Let her perform. Lunch was served around 1 p.m. We sat under string lights and paper lanterns. Pretending everything was normal. Haley, of course, had chosen the seat across from me. I've been thinking about real estate lately, she said casually, between bites of watermelon feta salad. Especially how unstable some businesses are these days, you know, how risky self-employment can be. People murmured. My Uncle Darren nodded like he'd been waiting to say that for years. I sipped my lemonade. Didn't flinch. That's when I saw it, the spoon. Haley stood up and tapped her glass with the back of her spoon, that same performative smile stretched tight across her face. Can I have everyone's attention, just for a moment? Conversations hushed. Even the kids stopped running. She placed one hand dramatically over her heart. First, I want to thank Mom and Dad for another amazing barbecue. Family is everything. Which is why I need to share something hard. About Danielle. A few heads turned toward me. Haley's voice trembled. Perfectly rehearsed. Some of you may have noticed Danielle seems a little off today. And that's because her business has collapsed. She's filed for bankruptcy. She's lost everything. Gasps. Forks froze midair. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. My dad muttered, "What?" I sat perfectly still. She didn't want me to say anything, Haley continued, dabbing at imaginary tears. But I just couldn't let her suffer in silence. She's proud. Too proud to ask for help. So I'm asking for her. If anyone knows of job openings, or has room to help, she could really use it. For a second, the world blurred. I wasn't 34 anymore. I was 12. At Grandma's. Christmas Eve. Haley laughing louder than everyone as she told the pee in bed story that wasn't true, and still. Everyone laughed. I felt my spine stiffen. Back then, I'd cried. This time, I didn't. I just clenched my napkin under the table, breathing through the noise. Next to me. Emma's hand found mine, solid, steady, silent. And that's when I remembered, this wasn't just about business or a beach house. This was about dignity. I looked around. Faces of pity. Shock. Mild curiosity, even amusement. And Haley, the heroine of the hour, soaking in every second. My fingers curled around my napkin. Emma leaned toward me. "Say the word," she whispered. "I'll throw a drink in her lap." I almost laughed. But I didn't. Instead, I stood up. "Thank you all for your concern," I said, voice calm but clear. "But I'm not bankrupt. I'm restructuring. And doing just fine." Haley's smile faltered, just for a second. "Oh, Danielle," she purred. "There's no shame in the truth. I saw the paperwork." "You saw a contingency document," I said evenly. "Not a filing. But Chapter 11 isn't something people prepare unless." "I'm not filing anything," I said. "Except a property deed. Yesterday." A few people blinked. I didn't elaborate. Didn't owe anyone that. I sat down. Picked up my fork. And started eating again. Let them wonder. Let her squirm. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is no revenge at all. Just truth, delivered quietly, while they're busy shouting lies. The barbecue ended like every other family event, paper plates half-eaten, kids sticky with popsicles, and my mother insisting people take home leftovers no one wanted. Except this time. I wasn't exhausted. I was waiting. Because tomorrow morning, at 10 a.m., Haley had an appointment. With a real estate agent. She'd told the whole family about it, loudly, at least 3 times during the party. "The beach house is back on the market," she had said, twirling her wine glass like a villain in a soap opera. "I called the agent already. I have a tour booked. Feels like fate, right?" Everyone had nodded. Smiled politely. No one asked how she planned to afford a $1.1 million property. She never mentioned the price. Just the view. And the porch. And the white columns. And the way she'd finally have a space worthy of hosting real holidays. I didn't say a word. At 9:52 the next morning, I parked 2 streets down and waited. The house looked exactly like it had that first time we passed it, like it had been lifted from a dream and set gently by the water. At 10:01, Haley pulled up in her leased BMW. Out stepped the real estate agent, bright smile, clipboard, keys in hand. I gave it 2 minutes. Then I followed. The front door was already open when I arrived. I stepped inside like I belonged there, because I did. The agent looked up, startled. "Oh. Are you?" "I'm the owner," I said gently. "It's fine." She blinked. "Oh. Of course." From the living room, I heard Haley's voice echoing through the halls. "I told you, this is the one. I've had my eye on it for years. The lighting in here is absolutely insane." I stepped into the doorway just as she turned toward the kitchen. Her eyes met mine. She froze. Her smile collapsed into confusion. What are you doing here? I shrugged. Just checking on the place. Thought I'd swing by. She laughed, but it came out forced. Wait. Wait, what do you mean the place? I looked around. It's mine. Her face didn't change immediately. It was like watching ice crack in slow motion. No, she said, voice brittle. No, it's not. You're just, no. That's not possible. The sale closed Friday, I said. All cash. Through an LLC. The agent stepped back awkwardly, clearly realizing she'd walked into a scene. You, Haley started, then stopped. She looked around the house like it had betrayed her. As if the walls had chosen me over her. You bought it just to spite me. Her voice cracked, somewhere between disbelief and rage. I met her gaze. Calm. I bought it because I could. She let out a bitter laugh, one that didn't quite land. You knew this was my dream, she said, barely above a whisper. And yet, you assumed I'd never be able to live it. And yet, you assumed I'd never be able to live it. She shook her head. This is sick. No, I said. What happened at the barbecue, that was sick. She looked like she might cry. But I didn't offer comfort. I didn't do this to hurt you, Haley, I added softly. I bought it to stop making myself small, not to make you feel anything. I just wanted something that was mine. Not borrowed. Not questioned. Just mine. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. And for once, for the first time in my life, she didn't have a comeback. The agent cleared her throat. Would you like a moment? Haley turned. Walked out the front door without another word. And I stayed. I sat down on the porch swing. Let the salt breeze hit my face. Closed my eyes. For the first time in years. There was no noise. No apology. No pretending. Just space. Mine. The next few days passed, quietly. No calls from Haley. No texts. Not even a passive-aggressive meme on her Instagram story. And for Haley, that was practically a scream. I stayed at the beach house the whole week. No work calls. No email. Just waves, birds, and the occasional neighbor walking their dog who smiled and said, "You picked a good one." I didn't tell them why I chose this house. I didn't need to. I spent mornings on the porch swing, drinking coffee. Afternoons organizing the pantry with the kind of peace that felt almost foreign. For years, I had built a life around surviving my sister's spotlight. Now, I was learning what it meant to build one without it. 3 days after the reveal, my mom called. She didn't ask about the house. Didn't mention Haley. Just said, I made banana bread. Can I bring you some? And just like that, my walls almost crumbled. Not because I needed banana bread. But because for once, she reached out without needing a reason. I hesitated. Then said yes. She arrived the next morning, still in her robe and slippers, holding a foil-wrapped loaf like a peace offering. We sat at the kitchen island. She looked around the house with quiet awe. Then, softly, she asked, "Why didn't you tell us?" I shrugged. You never really listened. She didn't argue. Didn't defend herself. Just nodded. I guess I didn't want to believe your sister would lie like that. She didn't lie, I said. Not technically. She just told the story in a way that made her the hero. My mom looked down. I think she learned that from me. When she was little, I always told her, if you want to be loved, make them notice you. I didn't realize what I was planting. That part hit hard. But it was honest. And it explained more than I wanted to admit. We talked for an hour. About the patterns. The favoritism. The way silence had always been rewarded in me, and performance in Haley. She apologized. Not a grand, dramatic apology. Just a quiet one. The kind that sticks. The next day, my dad called. Said he wanted to fix the deck at the back of the house if I'd let him. I let him. Not because I needed the help. But because I wanted him to walk on something I built, and know I did it without applause. That afternoon, as he handed me a screwdriver, he looked at me and said, "You've done well, kid. Lately. I've been wondering if I ever really saw that." He didn't linger on it. Just went back to work. But I held on to that moment. Because for once, my father didn't see me through Haley's lens. He saw me, fully. Haley didn't show up. Didn't call. Didn't comment. But I knew she was watching. That weekend, a mutual cousin sent me a screenshot of Haley's newest post. A selfie with the caption, "Not everything we lose is a loss." Classic. But I didn't respond. Didn't feel the need. That was new. Instead, I focused on the life in front of me. I reopened the shop 2 weeks later with a new product line and a tighter team. We launched quietly. No big announcement. No press. And still, sales surged. Turns out, customers respond to consistency. And quiet confidence. I've been thinking about starting something new. Not another product. A space. Maybe a small circle of women like me, the ones who've been told they're not bold enough, not loud enough, not worth noticing. A place to build quietly. Together. One night, I hosted dinner at the beach house. Emma came. My parents. Even my aunt, who once asked if I'd considered becoming a receptionist, just in case the business didn't work out. We grilled shrimp. Drank too much wine, and laughed like we hadn't in years. Haley didn't come. She was invited. She even RSVP'd, maybe. But she never showed. I told myself it didn't matter. But I still set a place for her. I didn't move it all night. And for once, I didn't take that personally. Some people leave not because they're cut off, but because they don't know how to show up when they're not in control. That night, as everyone left and the house got quiet again, I sat on the porch, barefoot, sipping the last of my wine. And I realized something. The house wasn't the revenge. The silence wasn't either. The real revenge was this. I didn't need her story anymore. I had my own. And it was finally loud enough for me to hear. A few weeks later, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name. Handwritten in Haley's cursive, the same handwriting she used to forge notes to our teachers when we were kids. Inside was a photo. Us, age 7 and 9. Matching dresses. Holding popsicles. Me, grinning with my front teeth missing. Her, already posing like she knew the camera was watching. On the back, she had written, "You were never invisible. I just couldn't stand that you didn't need to be seen." That was it. No apology. No signature. Just truth, finally. And somehow, that hit harder than 1,000 apologies ever could. I stared at the photo for minutes, the same one I remembered from our childhood fridge. She always knew the camera was on her. And I always smiled anyway. Because I thought maybe, if I smiled big enough, she'd let me stand beside her, not behind. Maybe she saw that. Maybe that's what scared her the most. I sat with it for a long time. Because for years, I'd believed my silence was weakness. That my refusal to fight back, to perform, to play the same game, meant I was lesser. But it didn't. It meant I was whole, even when no one clapped. The beach house? It's still mine. Still quiet. Still full of light. I've painted the porch. Adopted a golden retriever named Benny. Planted tomatoes that are already failing, but I'm learning. Haley hasn't come by. But she hasn't needed to. Sometimes, closure isn't a conversation. It's a choice. And I chose to stop proving. To stop shrinking. To stop waiting for someone else to validate a life I built with my own hands. People still ask me if I bought that house out of revenge. And I used to hesitate. Now, I just smile. I bought it because I could. But here's what I didn't expect. That the real victory wouldn't be owning the house. Or watching my sister finally stumble. It would be waking up every morning. Looking around. And not needing to explain anything to anyone. That is freedom. So if you're watching this, and you've ever been made to feel like the supporting act in someone else's spotlight. If you've ever swallowed your success to keep the peace. If you've ever been humiliated in the name of family honesty. I want you to hear this. You don't owe anyone your silence. But you also don't owe them your rage. You owe yourself peace. Build it. Keep it. And when the moment comes, don't be afraid to take up space. Even if no one claps. Even if they whisper. Even if they call it petty. Because one day, you'll be sitting on a porch swing. Coffee in hand. Heart intact. And you'll realize. You didn't need to win. You just needed to stop playing the wrong game. And the moment you choose peace over performance. That's when you finally come home.